Sicilian muses, let us now sing a somewhat grander song. Arbutus trees and humble tamarisks do not please us all. So if we are to sing of woods, may those woods be worthy of a consul. I've done a few videos on here about Greek and Latin pastoral poetry, but the other week someone very kindly suggested I do one on Virgil's 4th Eclogue. I was hesitant. It's been done too many times before, and generally I take the view that if you've got nothing new to say, then don't say it. But I really appreciated the request, so I'll do my best. Welcome to Ancient Classics. Now the final era of Cumaean song has come, and from this secular rejuvenation a grand order is born. Now the maiden returns, the kingdom of Saturn returns, now a new generation is born from high heaven. But you, chaste Lucina, look favourably upon the child that is born, one for whom the Iron Age gives way, and with whom a golden generation arises across the lands, as now your Apollo reigns. You know, I'm constitutionally adverse to Golden Age rhetoric. It's cliché, dumb and overblown, and as soon as there's a hint of a political element in any art, well, my hackles rise. But hell, I think there might be something in this. Something that raises goose flesh despite myself. And how many works of art can simultaneously trigger goose flesh and cringe? Oh, through all my cliched talk of hackles and goose flesh, I think I've stumbled upon it. It's the same physical emotional response that causes a dog to bristle and a human to goose flesh up. Maybe Virgil's mastered that duality here. In the first lines of Eclogue 4, with which this video opened, Virgil had invoked the pastoral muses. They're Sicilian, like Theocritus, along with the tropes of pastoral rusticity. And then, immediately, he seeks to undermine those rustic pastoral themes with this cosmic golden age rhetoric. But does he really? I mean, is Virgil really undermining pastoral vibes here? Because it seems to me that the ostensible subversion of pastoral and rustic tropes was a cliché of the genre from the get-go. You see, it's a truism, right? That the pastoral poets, Theocritus, Virgil, and all who followed them, were urbanites putting on a fake pastoral persona. We all know that. And their proclamations of rustic humility were all just humble bragging. And whenever they proclaimed loftier ambitions, all they're doing is admitting what everyone knows all along. You could say that this rhetorical ploy, this claim to transcend the genre, is actually little more than a doubling down into the genre's most well-worn cliches. It's all business as usual. Par for the course. Same old story. Well, let's just let Virgil do that for now. Even so, all these mystic, astrological, mythic references to the final age of Cumaean song, the return of the maiden, the return of a Saturnian age, on the face of it, they seem so specific. So much so that all the commentators in their commentaries seek to pin them down to precise historical mythic sources, and then try to seek a specific meaning from them. But really, might not Virgil just be reaching for cliches or things that sound mythic without any real precision? And is he doing this for ironic effect? Or as a lazy attempt to grasp at something that sounds profound? In case you think I'm being too dismissive here, just think of all that hippie shit from the 1960s or new age claptrap, whether that be self-serious, commercial, ironic, or just piss take. I could quote any number of examples, but Age of Aquarius from the 60s musical Hair will do, and I'm not going to sing it, don't worry. When the moon is in the 7th house and Jupiter aligns with Mars, then peace will guide the planets and love will steer the stars. This is the dawning of the Age of Aquarius. Total bullshit, of course, and that's kind of the point. Was Hare's Age of Aquarius an ironic piss take? An earnest attempt to reflect and capture the late 60s counterculture? Or indeed just a cynical attempt to monetize its tropes with what were already by then lazy and empty cliches? And that, hey, is this for real or just a piss take or a cynical manipulative ploy, is precisely what, I feel, we have here with the mysticism of Eclogue 4. Under your consulship, Pollio, such a glorious age begins and the long months begin to roll by. With you as our leader, any remaining traces of our evil ways shall become ever void, freeing the lands from fear. And the child shall witness a life of gods, divinities amongst heroes, and he himself shall be seen by them and shall rule the world, pacified by his father's virtues. The reference to the consulship of Pollio dates this poem to 40 BCE. I find this a little tricky to follow. Virgil's zigzagging hard here, and he'll continue to do so. First, he seems to imply that the changes he's describing are arising under the leadership of Pollio, but the frame soon shifts and it becomes clear that Virgil is instead speaking about things that will arise in the lifetime of this mysterious baby boy, the one whose birth Virgil announced a few lines back. And who do you think this little baby boy is? Answers in the comments, please, but we'll pick up on the political ramifications a little bit later, don't you worry. But the uncultivated earth shall bring forth for you, child, these first humble gifts. Ivy spreading everywhere, with berries, lilies mixed with fragrant acanthus. The she-goats shall return, udders heavy with milk, and the herds shall not fear mighty lions. And your cradle will overflow with white flowers. The serpent shall die, and the grass that is laced with secret poison shall die, and eastern spice plants will grow everywhere. As soon as you are able to read of the tales of heroes and the deeds of your father, and to discern virtue, the fields shall begin to grow with soft yellow crops. The ruddy grape will grow upon untended vines, and hardy oak trees will drip with honeydew. And yet, traces of the old corrupt ways will subsist, those that encouraged men to test the seas with ships, to surround towns with walls, to hack furrows into the earth. Then there will arise another Tiphys, helmsman of the Argo, to convey select heroes. And there will be another war, and again shall mighty Achilles be sent to Troy. Wait, I just realized as I was working through this again, this is not a reversal back to an earlier golden age. No, it's not a reversal, it's a rerun, a repeat. We know the story, right? First there was a golden age when nature's bounty abounded without cultivation. Then mankind started to intervene, setting sail, building towns, and with that followed an age of heroes, after which came the corrupt, imperfect, historical age, peopled by lesser mortals. That's all cliché, and that's the very same order in which things will play out according to Virgil in this new golden age. First his contemporary age, then a golden age, then an age of ships, walls, and wars, albeit the wars of heroes. The implication seems to be that things will just end up the same as they are. Perhaps. Because then Virgil's mythic future chronology takes another turn. Then when your formative years have made you a man, even the merchant will have given up on seafaring, nor shall the wooden ship trade merchandise. Rather the whole earth shall bring forth everything. The ground shall no longer suffer the rake, nor shall the vine suffer the sickle. The hardy ploughman also shall release the bulls from the yoke, nor shall wool be artificially dyed different colours. Instead, the ram in the fields will change the colour of his wool himself and of his own accord, now a ruddy purple, now saffron yellow, and spontaneously scarlet shall cloak the grazing lambs. So after a false start, an initial golden age descending to a new age of heroes, then comes the real golden age. The mythic narrative seems confused, muddled, and yet how true. A hopeful false start begins to go wrong, followed by a second and now successful attempt. There's a political realism in there, but transplanted into mythologizing prophecy. I'm beginning to see the layers. Bring on such ages, shall the fates tell their own spindles, in harmony with the steadfast spirit of destiny. This near invocation of the fates, the Parcae, bears a close resemblance to Catullus' mini-epic poem 64, which includes the repeating refrain, Corrite ducentes subtegmina, corrite fusi. Run on, leading the weft, run on, you spindles. Note the near-identical last 2 feet of Catullus and Virgil's line. Scholars can get carried away sometimes with allusion spotting, and sometimes one has to ask whether a supposed allusion is really just a coincidence. And sometimes even scholars claim to spot allusions where there is not even a textual congruence at all. But I think the Catullus 64 allusion is undeniable here. The line I just quoted comes up not once, but unusually for a classical era poem, multiple times in Catullus 64. So Virgil would unlikely have forgotten it. And in the previous section of Eclogue 4, Virgil's account of the somewhat less than perfect returned, heroic, not quite yet golden age, is also laced with some unmistakable Catullan references. His reference to the ship Argo, troubling the seas in particular, and to the Pinewood merchant ship harken straight back to the opening of Catullus 64. Even I spotted that before I even opened the commentaries. Dear child of gods, great progeny of Jupiter, see the world tottering under the weight of the firmament, and the lands and the expanses of sea and the immense sky. See that everything may rejoice at the new age to come. May sufficient strength remain to me, so that at the end of my long life I may yet be able to tell of your deeds. And may neither Thracian Orpheus nor Linus surpass me in song, even though Calliope was Orpheus's mother, handsome Apollo Linus's father. Even if Pan were to compete with me, with Arcadia as judge, may even Pan declare himself bested by me, with Arcadia as my judge. You know that pastoral humble brag I was banging on about earlier, that cliche of the genre? Well, here Virgil is outright proclaiming himself the equal, the better even, of Orpheus, Linus, and Pan, invoking Arcadian tropes as he does so. Again, I can't quite read if he's being ironic or just revealing the ambitions lying behind all pastoralists. I guess at least he's owning it. But the poem continues and draws to a close. So go on, little boy. Acknowledge your mother with a smile. 10 months have brought a long time of suffering to your mother. So go on, little boy, for those at whom their parents do not smile are worthy neither to join a god at his table, nor a goddess in her bed. Okay, that's a bit of a strange ending. If eliciting a smile from one's parents as a newborn is the key to dining with the gods and fucking goddesses, well, that's a fairly low bar, I'd say. But hey. So I don't know what to make of this poem, and I don't quite know why it's supposed to be so amazing. Let me explain. It's so bleeding obvious that it feels trite to say so, but Virgil's imagery is clearly inspired by various accounts of the Golden Age, as mostly received from the Greco-Roman tradition. Countless scholars, and probably YouTube videos, have catalogued the precedents. The main ones are Hesiod's Works and Days, lines 106 and following, Aratus's Phenomena, lines 96 and following, Horace's roughly contemporaneous 16th Ode, and no one can quite seem to agree who's imitating whom, Virgil or Horace, and God knows how many other texts. Then there's the prophetic, mystic, messianic, if you like, tradition, which I think we should distinguish from the past Golden Age tropes. Chief among the prophetic texts are the Sibylline books, to which Virgil expressly alludes when he writes of the ultima Cumei venit jam Carmenis aetas. The final age of Cumean song has now come, Cumae being where the prophetic Sibyl was at. And of course there are the messianic passages in the Old Testament, the book of Isaiah specific. There's a whole book on the subject, and Christ knows howsoever many papers. The unresolved and unresolvable debate being to what extent is Virgil directly influenced by the Old Testament? Did he have a translation? Had he heard about it from his pals? Or had the Hebrew messianic tradition found its way into Roman literary culture indirectly? Or perhaps they shared a common source? Or is it all just coincidental thematic similarity, tropes common to so much first-century prophetic literature, most of it presumably now lost? So where does Virgil's originality lie, if indeed there is any to be found here? Could his originality lie in the combination of Golden Age tropes, looking back to a distant mythic past, and combining that with prophetic messianic text, which obviously enough look to the future? To test that, Whether that is an original combination, I mean, we'd have to go through the corpus of prophetic literature, most of which, as I've said, has been lost, to see if they look to a renewed golden age too. Well, there's one obvious place to look, and I've mentioned it already, namely the Old Testament, the book of Isaiah, whether Virgil read it or its common influences. Isaiah chapter 11, verses 6 to 8, famously go, "The wolf shall dwell with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the kid, and the calf, and the young lion, and the fatling together, and a little child shall lead them, and the cow and the bear shall feed. Their young ones shall lie down together, and the lion shall eat straw like the ox, and the suckling child shall play on the hole of the asp, and the weaned child shall put his hand on the cockatrice's den." You must forgive me for not citing the Hebrew and reading Jimmy's translation, not my own. I usually make sure to cite the ancient originals, but my Hebrew is non-existent. Sorry. But anyway, Isaiah 11, whilst messianic and prophetic, is itself replete with golden age tropes, such as Virgil's, "And the herd shall not fear mighty lions, and your cradle will overflow with white flowers. The serpent shall die, and the grass that is laced with secret poison shall die." Well, what about the Sibylline oracles? Most of the Sibylline books were destroyed, I think as part of the spate of early Christian burning of books. But a few survive, quoted in various sources. They're not enough to go on, and without popping down to my local library, they're really tough to locate online. But those I found seemed all kind of generic prophetic stuff, some proclaiming future prosperity or the like. But anyhow, even if we take the book of Isaiah as proxy for the kind of stuff that was in circulation in Virgil's time, I think it is fair to say that there's nothing too massively original about combining prophetic messianic literature with golden age tropes. So I don't think Virgil won any marks for originality in that regard. Could Virgil's originality instead lie in bringing those tropes into the pastoral genre? Maybe, but I've already said how ostensible genre busting is, and always was, an absolute cliche of the genre. It is a genre defined by the busting of genre. And all those recusatios, protestations of humility, setting the stage for a reversal, bringing in grander elements, seems like that's what the pastoralists were doing from the outset, as I've said before. But I'm being awfully harsh. Let's give Virgil some credit, some benefit of the doubt. Let's just assume he was the first to combine the Golden Age prophetic tropes with pastoral. You can be sure that once Virgil did, others followed. In my video on Calpurnius Eclogue 1, which I made about a year ago, we saw Golden Age prophetic elements weaved into Calpurnius' Song of Faunus. But perhaps the most obvious echoes of Eclogue 4, from pre-medieval times at least, can be found in the second so-called Einsiedeln Eclogue. Excuse my German. One of the two fragmentary eclogues, possibly from Neronian times, found in the eponymous Swiss abbey whose name I shall not butcher again. Perhaps I've been a bit rough on Virgil in this video, so maybe we should flatter him by comparison. The second eclogue from the eponymous Swiss abbey is a dialogue between two herdsmen, Glycerinus and Mistes. Mistes is worried. Glycerinus asks why Mistes is worried. Perhaps a wolf has attacked his cattle. But no, something deeper is going on. Weirdly enough, it is sufficiency, a present golden age that plagues Mistes. The days of Saturn and of the maiden Astraea have returned, and an age of safety brings us back to old values. The harvester now stores his corn, knowing it's safe. Bacchus mellows with old age. The flock wanders through the grasslands. We do not cut people down with swords, nor do cities enclosed by walls prepare for unspeakable war. Nor does any woman commit the maternal crime of giving birth to future enemies. The unarmed youths plough the fields, and the boy trained only in agricultural arts admires the sword as a relic hanging in his father's house. The misfortunes of Sulla's glory days are distant from us, as is that threefold crisis when Rome was dying, broke, and had to sell off the weapons of war. Now the uncultivated earth bears new fruits. Now the wild seas no longer begrudge ships, now safe. Tigers bite the bit, and lions submit to the cruel yoke. But you, chaste Lucina, look favourably upon us, as now your Apollo reigns. Check out the express allusion to Virgil Eclogue 4 there. The Golden Age from this later eclogue is more realist, more present than Virgil 4. And it's the foil for Mistes' worries, probably that it is just too good to be true, though we never get to find out precisely what's on his mind because the manuscript breaks off at this point. What's cool about this later eclogue is that the Golden Age that Mistes describes does not bring happiness, rather the Golden Age belies his worries. Perhaps they're even the cause. And I wonder whether this is an innovation by the anonymous poet, taking Virgil's Golden Age and turning it into something more ambivalent, dark even. Or perhaps our unnamed poet is merely shining a light on the ambivalence that was already there in Virgil. Remember, as Virgil wrote his Eclogue 4, the political turmoil of his times was far from over. Gaius Julius Caesar had been assassinated only 4 years prior, and the Battle of Actium was 9 years into Virgil's future. Now, it is inevitable, it seems, in classical verse, that as soon as a poet started throwing out Golden Age, let alone prophetic tropes, he would be veering dangerously into the territory of encomium. And encomium, in a troubled, politically unstable age, without historical hindsight, is a very risky game to play. And whose side was Virgil on? I mean, really, who was he really rooting for? And who did he want people to think he was rooting for? Who did he think he might need to be seen to have rooted for then and in his then unknown and unknowable future? Virgil invokes the consul Pollio, of course, and seems to give him some praise, but it's the child, the baby boy in whose lifetime the Golden Age will come to full fruition, who is the real mystery and the key, if any, to Virgil's political intent. So who is the baby boy? Everyone's got their take on it, and I really can't be bothered to summarize the literature here, but the usual candidates are the baby boy is either a child of Pollio the consul, a child of Mark Antony, a future child of Octavian/Augustus, or perhaps even an infantilized Octavian himself, or of course Jesus Christ. Now, the poem can be dated to 40 BC, as I've said, so no matter how closely Virgil may or may not have been up to date on or even cared about current affairs in Israel, short of divine inspiration, there's absolutely no way he could have been alluding to baby Jesus here. Though, of course, many of the early church fathers and the like did claim that that was what Virgil was doing. I'm not sure who started that. Coleman in his commentary cites St. Augustine, but he also notes that Augustine didn't himself quote Virgil's 4th Eclogue specifically, but rather the Sibylline prophecies, which might in turn have influenced Virgil. But I haven't checked Augustine out directly for myself, so I don't know. But anyway, leaving aside Jesus Christ, people have nonetheless kept on coming up with theories over the years as to who the child is. But to me, that's the whole point. Virgil doesn't tell us, he keeps us guessing, allowing us to project whatever the hell we think. But is Virgil hedging his bets politically? Or would it have been obvious to his original readers with perhaps a little more context who he was referring to? More likely, it seems to me that Virgil is intentionally constructing a plausible deniability for himself. He gets to be both sucky-uppy praise poet and claim mystery, deny political sledgehammering, and he can deny having taken any side in case things didn't turn out the way he expected. Certainly in his later years, Virgil wore his political affiliations on his sleeve. But by then it was safe to do so once Augustus and his posse had no rivals. During the consulship of Pollio, 40 BC, things were still very much in flux. The risk of backing the wrong proverbial horse or backing someone who'd subsequently fall from grace was more than real. Virgil really is leaving his options open, perhaps. And how do you feel about that? Is it cowardice? Or is it actually good taste? See, to us, the question of taste also comes into it. Me, I'd like to think that art should avoid the political, should not take sides, and that outright partisan encomium is cringe as fuck. But perhaps that's just me and my age speaking. I'm a 90s teenager, you see. Certainly, earlier ages didn't always look at it like that, and if mainstream media over the last year is anything to go by, it seems that wearing one's political affiliations on one's sleeve is par for the course these days too, though that doesn't stop it from being cringe. Likewise, the ancients had a different take on that dynamic, as if, of course, we could lump all the ancients together from Pindar through to Claudian. If we can see how expectations have changed from the 1990s to the 2020s, clearly they would also have changed across all the different cultures over 1,000 years. So Virgil's position of plausible deniability is it cowardice or good taste? What are your views? But of course, there's always the possibility that Virgil's plausible deniability is neither an act of artistic taste nor a political hedge. We can't discount the possibility that Virgil's just trolling, even though it does feel a little more Ovidian rather than Virgilian. Perhaps Virgil is just trolling us all, you and me, and also millennia worth of scholars, pundits, and cultists, getting us all to speculate who the child is, what his message is, and perhaps Virgil doesn't have one. Perhaps Virgil's just being a Proto-Ovidian literary jerk. But hey, perhaps I'm just seeing it all through my Gen X lens. What are your takes? Let us know. Until next time, like and subscribe, hit the notification bell, and we'll be back soon.